Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Friday, the 18th of February, 2022, the end of the week, but we have lots to discuss with you. Our first story of the day that we'll be discussing with you in detail is going to be the 15th anniversary of the Samjhota Express incident. That was a train that used to go between New Delhi and Lahore. On the 18th of February in 2007, an IED blast was carried out in this train, and this happened at Panipat in Haryana. 68 people, including 44 Pakistani citizens, lost their lives, while other Indian citizens and 15 unidentified persons were also killed in the blast. 12 people, including 10 Pakistanis and 2 Indians, were also injured in the terrorist attack. 15 years have gone past. A lot of investigations happened, but the people who were in fact the real culprits behind it were let go. We will try to investigate some part of this tragedy and continue to talk about what the BJP and the RSS ideology and mindset has been continuing as far as seeking havoc between different religions and races in India is concerned. This leads to incidents such as what happened in 2007 at the Samjhota Express. This is going to be our first segment, ladies and gentlemen. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the JCPOA. We know that the final round of talks are on between the parties concerned and Iran. There is a lot of optimism as well. A draft of this deal has also apparently been made. It has been shared between the countries concerned. Whether this draft will ultimately be signed in its proper form, whether all the parties concerned will also be agreeing to it, this is going to be our second story of the day. At the same time, Khamenei has also rejected absurd as claims that Iran wants to build an atomic bomb, something that the West has been pointing towards Iran as. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking about Microsoft co-founder and billionaire and of course co-founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who visited Pakistan yesterday on a day-long visit. It was a very hectic visit. He met with the Prime Minister Imran Khan. He met with Asad Umar Saab, who's the head of the NCOC. He also attended the morning session of the NCOC. He met with Sania Nishtar Saiba. He also was conferred upon with one of the biggest awards by Pakistan, the Hilal-e-Pakistan, by the President of Pakistan, Dr. Arif Alvi. And he also praised all the efforts that are being made by Pakistan, whether it be for polio eradication or for COVID-19. Then we'll be talking about the different methodologies that are being put into place by different organizations in Pakistan. And now today we'll talk about the police. To give the citizens a good police-centric policy, Islamabad Police has launched its own services through WhatsApp. All you need to do is send your CNIC number to a certain number on WhatsApp, and all the services can be accessed at the tip of your finger, and you can ask any question you want, and you can avail any of the services of Islamabad Police. This has begun with Islamabad and inshallah will continue across the country as well. Let's begin with our first story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns this the 15th anniversary of this horrific terrorist incident of the Samjhota Express that happened in Panipat in Haryana, in which scores of people lost their lives, including Pakistanis. More in the following report.
The regional reprobate India has a wicked history of hatching conspiracies against Pakistan since its inception. Besides brutal occupation of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, marginalization of Indian Muslims and oppression of all minority groups, Indian government has been covertly involved in terror activities to destabilize Pakistan. The bloody February 2007 blast at the Samjhota Express train heading from Delhi to Lahore was brazen manifestation of hate and intolerance espoused by Hindutva doctrine. According to India's National Investigation Agency, which probed the case, the attack was carried out by a Hindu far-right group RSS to spill the blood of Muslims. The Samjhota Express, also called Friendship Express, was started in 1994 as a goodwill gesture to facilitate families separated by the 1947 India-Pakistan partition, highlighting Indian state patronage of Hindu fundamentalists. A special nation investigation agency court in India's Haryana state acquitted 4 individuals accused in the Samjhota Express bombing case, reflecting travesty of justice. To garner attention of global community towards Indian destabilization advertising designs, Pakistan presented a dossier containing irrefutable proof of the Indian sponsorship of terrorism in Pakistan and called on world to stop India's rogue action for saving the region's peace and security. India, overwhelmed by RSS Hindu nationalist bigotry, has been thwarting Pakistan's desire for peace in subcontinent.
Ramesh Kumar, who's an MNA from the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, joins us online. Ramesh Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Ramesh Saab, when you look at this heinous incident that happened way back in 2007, so many years have gone by. Still, a lot of the principal accused have been let go of and are roaming scot-free. Why has this happened? Why has this happened in a country that calls itself the largest democracy? And why were fingers pointed at Pakistan?
I think now this blame gaming should be aimed because this is against the religion. India is a secular country. Pakistan is an Islamic country. So I think this is the responsibility of each country that blame gaming should be finished. But in India, when I went India in the election process, I saw that there is a Pakistan banning facility, Pakistan banning campaign. But in Pakistan, whenever the election in Pakistan, they need the friendship between the both countries. But in India election, there is a dashing against the Pakistan. I told them why this is. So this is the policy of the BJP. I think this policy should be had, and because otherwise the India will also broken in pieces. You see, recently so many cases are there in which there is a discrimination to cash the vote in different areas. So this culture, I think, damaged the India also, at national and international level. Actually, in world, every country realized that India is a democratic country. But now you see, there are so many issues in European Union, in British Parliament, in the American Congress. You see, there is so many speeches that are against India, in India. If you see earlier, there is no hate speeches in the India against a Muslim or any other community. But now they are happening. So it is against the Indian Constitution also, and the Indian name is going in bed due to these things. So Modi should rethink about all the things. Otherwise, this will damage, and this should be realized by the both countries, that the future of the both countries is the friendship and be the Asian tiger.
But Ramesh Saab, despite the overtures of friendship that have come from the Pakistani side since day one, from Prime Minister's first statement and address to the nation, in which he said if Pakistan will put 2 steps forward, if India puts 1 step forward. On the other hand, we see continuously anti-Pakistan narratives emanating from India, whether it be this, of course, Samjhota Express, or other incidents of false flag operations, and so on and so forth. What is, in your point of view, going on in the minds of the Indian government and the Indian BJP people? What do they want as far as their neighborhood countries are concerned?
I think the relation only can be better when there is a equality. If you see now that India needs supremacy, India needs their decision. So in this way, the relation can't be built good. That's why I have tried to start the faith tourism between the both countries, and Pakistan have facilitated Hindu pilgrimage, the minority community in Pakistan, and we have been allowed 2 times, on 24th November and again on 1st January 2022, to start this faith tourism in Pakistan. And again, I have sent the request to Pakistan government that allow us for the monthly faith tourism in Pakistan and India both. And the Pakistan have again given the permission. And when the Pakistan government, MOFA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sent the letter to Indian government, the Indian government says that we welcome this, but we need the talks on this issue. So I think these practice should be end. Otherwise, we can't go ahead. Pakistan is ready to take two steps, but India should take one step. But the role of, I don't know why India is going slow, and due to the election in four provinces. So the result of these four provinces, also the eye-opening of the BJP government.
All right. Also, Ramesh Saab, the Indian Chargé d'Affaires was summoned at the Foreign Office today as well, and he was conveyed Pakistan's disappointment at the Indian government's callousness towards the plight of the families of the Pakistani nationals who await justice even after the passage of 15 years. Of course, today is the 15th anniversary of the Samjhota Express incident. What should be done now by the Indian government to give the families of those who lost their lives in this heinous terrorist incident peace and justice?
I think this is a human being. Being a human being, it is a primary responsibility. But denying on this issue, it is a bad luck. You see, when the 11 murder in the Jodhpur have been done, we have arranged a rally in Islamabad Constitution Avenue, and we went to Indian High Commission to take the notice of this issue. Still, there is no response. Still, there is no response on these 11 murders. But if any one issue comes like this in Pakistan, the world, not only India, but in the world, you see that what they are saying. So they should rethink about that, and world have also the responsibility to see what is the nature in India.
All right. Thank you very much, Ramesh Kumar Saab. You are an MNA from the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf to have joined us and to have talked to us 15 years after this heinous terrorist incident that happened on the 18th of February in 2007 that claimed the lives of scores of Pakistanis on a train that was called then Samjhota Express and used to run between New Delhi and Lahore, and this incident that happened, of course, at Panipat in Haryana. Now, what happened in 2007? Hindu extremists conducted an attack at the Samjhota Express in 2007 and they blamed the Muslim groups for this attack. Then the NIA, or the National Intelligence Agency, arrested a worker that was under the name Kamal Chauhan of Hindu extremist organization Rashtriya Swayamsek Sangh, otherwise known as the RSS, in New Delhi. Chauhan was an explosives specialist. He had planted a bomb in the train because, of course, it was an IED attack. Later on, his investigations also revealed that this Hindu activist, Mr. Chauhan, with several other persons, had been involved in the Ajmer Dargah blast also that had happened in Hyderabad's Makkah Masjid and Malegaon. Now, to talk more about the 15th anniversary of the Samjhota Express incident, we've been joined by Asif Durrani Sahab. He's a former ambassador. Asif Durrani Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. I was explaining a bit the history and what happened on the Samjhota Express and what happened afterwards as far as the investigations are concerned. Why, in your point of view, Durrani Sahab, were these investigations taken on a path with no end in sight? I mean, why is there's no solution? Why are the people, the families of the victims of this incident still awaiting justice?
Thank you, Khalid, for having me. As we all know, in fact, if you remember, the main culprits, Swami Asimanand and one colonel, in fact, they were actually RSS people. Now you are expecting a criminal organization to prosecute the accused. I don't think it will happen anywhere in the world where we talk about justice. So right now what you are witnessing in India all over, especially after this prohibition of hijab in Karnataka, and the manner, in a brutal manner, they are treating the Muslims there. Unfortunately, with regard to Samjhota Express, 68 people were killed, out of which 44 were Pakistani. And now it's 15 years. Now, Indians, they, crib about Bombay incident, but they conveniently ignore about their responsibility. And even in Bombay, they are not forthcoming with the evidence which they claim, and they have not shared with Pakistan. So it is a sheer arrogance. It's a sheer, you can say, the one-upmanship India has been displaying throughout. This Samjhota Express is not an exception. Yes.
We know that the Samjhota Express, sir, is not an exception, and we continuously see incidents in which the religious, the minorities in India are, of course, the victims. And it started with the Samjhota Express, and there are the whole spate of incidents that have happened. And we see that the masterminds behind all of such attacks have been more or less the Hindu extremists. Now, of course, you were talking of Swami Asim Anand and three others of the Samjhota Express incident who were, of course, had been held, were later acquitted in 2019. Since 2019, Ambassador Saab, there has been an upsurge as far as the atrocities towards the Muslim minorities is concerned. Where is all of this heading? Is it heading, in your point of view, towards genocide? Is it heading towards something else? Or do you feel that in some time we will only be looking or talking about India as Hindustan or a Hindu state?
You are with me, Khalid?
Yes, I am. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Sorry, I lost the connection on where. Well, now I've got it again. Yes, can you please repeat the last part of your question?
All right, I was just saying, you were talking about Swami Asim Anand. Him and three others were acquitted in 2019. They said there was not enough proof against them in this Samjhota Express incident. Now, I was just trying to ask you, since 2019, there has been an upsurge in such incidents against religious minorities, especially the Muslims. Where do you think India is heading?
Well, repeatedly, in fact, these incidents and as well as this shows the policy which is being pursued by BJP under the supervision of the RSS, Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, which is actually the founding father of this extremist Hindutva. Yeah.
But Ambassador Saab, all right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Asif Durrani Saab, to have joined us and to have talked to us about this 15th anniversary of this heinous incident, that is the Samjhota Express incident that claimed the lives of scores of people, including Pakistanis. And of course, this was a train that used to run between New Delhi and Lahore. And on this very day in 2007, a blast occurred, an IED blast, whose masterminds were RSS and who've been let scot-free in 2019. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns what is happening as far as the talks between Iran and the P5+1 are concerned, otherwise known as the JCPOA. What future does the JCPOA hold? Because as per sources, the final draft of this agreement is already ready, needs to be signed. What's going to happen? More in the following report.
Eighth round of the talks, which were paused for more than a week to allow delegations to head back to their capitals for political consultations, have resumed in Austrian capital. Iran and the United States are engaged in a final round of indirect talks mediated by China, Russia, and European parties to the agreement. Despite significant hurdles, there is anticipation that Washington and Tehran have made progress on reviving a deal restricting the Iran's nuclear weapons development in return of lifting sanctions. Marking a step towards reviving JCPOA, the U.S. State Department has restored sanctions waiver on Iran's civilian nuclear program, though NY is still negotiating details of the draft according amid Western warnings that time is running out before the original bargain becomes obsolete. The details of the draft accord have been revealed. The draft stipulates unfreezing about $7 billion in Iranian funds stuck in South Korean banks under the U.S. sanctions, as well as the release of Western prisoners held in Iran, which U.S. lead negotiator Robert Malley has suggested is a requirement for a deal. The new agreement entails the United States granting waivers to sanctions on Iran's lifeblood oil sector rather than lifting them outright, which will require renewing the waivers every few months. Earlier, Iran's chief negotiator Ali Bagheri Kani struck an unusually optimistic note, citing that parties to the deal are closer than ever to an agreement. As the world powers and Iran scramble to salvage the tattered Iran nuclear deal, the ongoing nuclear negotiations have entered a decisive phase.
Syed Ali Zia Jaffery, who's a research associate with the CSSPR, joins us online. Ali, thank you very much to have joined us. Ali, how optimistic are you as far as this deal is concerned?
I think this is a good development, and I say this because of a number of reasons. One, that if adversaries are talking and talking for a long time, that means that they're still engaged and they're still willing to give peace a chance, and which is always better than war. Two, I think now they have started to look at the contours of a possible pathway towards re-implementation of the JCPOA. That makes a lot of sense. They have talked about about a step-by-step approach, and more or less there's an agreement. I don't rule out the possibility of a disagreement going forward, but for now, if the step-by-step approach is followed, I think this is a relatively good news for all of us, especially those who look at this region and those who are invested in the peace invested in peace between Iran and the US. I do understand that Iran also says that we would come back to our 3.67 percentage of enrichment if certain conditions are followed, and there has not been any strong reaction on those demands right now. There could be bickering, but the intensity of reactions has not been that severe uh, for now, and this is something that is positive.
Or let you talk about the intensity of reactions, and you said that they are not severe. At the same time, we've got Mr. Kani, who's a top negotiator from Iran, who says they are very optimistic as far as the future of the deal is concerned. Then we hear of the 20-page draft resolution or the deal that has been unearthed as well, that has been revealed as well, that talks of certain preconditions and, of course, some of the thorny issues that remain, including the uranium enrichment. Do you feel that Iran will comply with it?
I think if the US appears to be an actor that is willing to help Iran come out of its financial crunch, I think Iran would take that positively, and Iran would be willing to go back to the deal. Because remember, in one of our earlier programs, I also made this point that it was the US that reneged on the JCPOA. Iran followed suit. So if the US wants to make the move, and it seems that it is willing to make the move, I think Iran would follow. And there have been reports that Iran that even if things go south, Iran would not take drastic actions, but would continue with enrichment as far as 60%. So it would remain where it is rather than be more aggressive. So I think if sanctions relief, or if cash is unfrozen, I think that would really help. That would be one of two of the the most important confidence building measures that could be taken, and that could pave the way for what one of the stories calls the re-implementation road to this JCPOA.
And when you talk about the re-implementation road of the JCPOA, one of the issues that Iran has, especially with the United States, is that it wants assurances that the United States is not going to back out of this deal at any time in the future for any reason whatsoever. Do you feel the US is ready to come to such a negotiation?
I think this there's a history to it. Iran is rightly concerned about the lack of reliability of the US, because in the past, especially as far as nuclear parlays are concerned, the US has backed off, and the breakdown of the JCPOA, as I said earlier, was a US doing, as opposed to being an Iran doing. So yes, it's only fair for Iran to ask reassurance, to seek reassurances from the US. Uh, I think if the US the fact that the US is carrying on these talks, is engaged and committed to this process of dialogue, I think this gives me a glimmer of hope that perhaps this time the US wants to, be engaged with this idea of re reviving this deal, because no, again the US now has a lot on its plate. The Russian crisis is on the head once again with a propos of Ukraine. So perhaps the US might be in a position to give this side, give this conflict a pause, and it would not be in its interest to let this conflict fester, because if a deal does not if this deal is not implemented, or if the deal is not revived, chances of a conflict with Iran may increase precipitously. So perhaps the US might want to avoid uh, putting itself in such a situation in at this point of time. So perhaps I see this as one of uh, the causes of optimism.
Although you're optimistic, I'd like to also ask you, how optimistic should we be as far as the Iranian perspective is concerned? Because how much do you feel the US is going to give as leeway towards this revival of the deal? You remember well that the US is not ready to lift all of the sanctions, whereas Iran wants the lifting of all the sanctions that have been put on it by the United States of America. Will there be some kind of a middle ground?
I think both sides have to, come down from a very maximalist position, because if both sides exercise recalcitrance and they continue to cling uh, to those very positions, then all that I'm saying would turn out on its head. There has to be a give and take, and both have to travel halfway. And this is why I stress that uh, these initial, the prisoners release and the unfreezing of cash, these two elements are good confidence building measures, and they also could act as testing grounds to show each other's commitment to taking further steps. So, for instance, if these confidence building measures are put in place, and even then Iran or the US does not fulfill its side of the bargain, then we can assess the success or the futility of these confidence building measures, and then the negotiators can then reassess as to how things can move going forward. I know it won't be easy. I know 100% of Iranian demands may not be met, and I also know that it is obviously true that 100% of US demands cannot be met. So yes, a middle ground should be developed, but for that to develop, we need to give these two elements a chance to succeed.
Like to refer you to a televised statement by Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who urged the importance of nuclear energy for Iran, and that is why he said we need to continue enriching our uranium and work on our nuclear energy. But at the same time, he has rejected the absurd claims that Iran wants to develop an atomic bomb, a claim that has continuously been made by the West. What should we believe? Who should we believe?
I think Iran bases its claim on two things. One, that Ayatollah Khomeini declared nuclear weapons un-Islamic in the 1980s. Two, Iran has signed the NPT. So Iran says that we will not develop nuclear weapons because we have already committed to not developing them by signing the NPT, and we are not getting out of the NPT. Two are the revolutionary Ayatollah Khomeini gave that edict that nuclear weapons are un-Islamic. So there is, from the Iranian point of view, there is a lot for us to think that yes, Iran will not develop nuclear weapons. but things change, and I would like to take you back to what Henry Kissinger said about Iran in one of his books. He said that Iran, all his life he has seen the country that looks after its national interests the most is Iran. So, things change. A lot could happen. I told you in one of our previous programs that Iran would also look at United States engagements with other nuclear powers and then see as to how different Iran is treated as compared to those states who have gone on to develop nuclear weapons. So yes, technically and theoretically, I would say that Iran has two fundamental resistors or to developing nuclear weapons. One is the edict, and the other is uh, it's being part of the NPT. But one can never be sure as to what could happen in the future. But Iran only wants, to my mind, Iran wants um, a revival of the deal. Iran wants, oil waivers to continue to, be put in place, and it wants an end to sanctions and nuclear energy. Yes, so Iran has been consistent in saying that nuclear energy is its right, and as one of the parties to the NPT, Iran has a right to access nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, and it's not an unfair demand.
All right, Ali, we're talking about confidence building measures, especially between the United States and Iran, who have of late been pointing the fingers at each other, especially from Iran's side. If we talk about the assassination of their scientists, this is what Iran has been saying, that US has been behind it, and there have been other incidents in Iran as well in the past, which it has blamed the United States of America for. Do you feel confidence building measures could be initiated between the two countries under the Joe Biden regime that could pave the way for some kind of a neutral relationship between the two countries?
Really, I'm not too sure that the overall relationship will improve. I think the nuclear element has a window that is being looked into through these negotiations. Otherwise, I firmly believe that Iran and the United States do not want to establish a relationship, a normal relationship, and they will continue to have an acrimonious one going forward because uh, Iran considers America as the number one agent of chaos in this region, and America considers Iran not only as one of the agents of chaos in the region, uh, the most important one at that, but also it is still not out of that um, hostage syndrome where Iran humiliated the US by holding hostage its diplomats for a period of 444 days. So I don't think that there is any other basis for a recalibration of ties between the two countries, even if this deal is to revive and succeed going forward. Because if there was any chance of that happening, we would have seen that this deal would have allowed for more improvements in Washington-Tehran relations. But in fact, it was it was it was a combination of other factors, the non-nuclear factors, that compelled the US, rightly or wrongly, to destroy this deal. So I am not too optimistic in that regard. But yes, the nuclear element, if this happens, it would be something good. It would at least uh, attenuate the prospect of a direct conflict between the two countries in the near future.
Where does that leave Iran's relationship with the other countries that are involved in this agreement? Of course, that includes China, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, the European Union. Do you feel the signing of this deal could further consolidate the relationship of Iran with these countries?
Yes, that's always possible. Let's suppose if for instance, other countries, European countries, or even if China is playing a certain kind of role, or Qatar is trying to play a role, that would help, because Iran would then see those countries as having played a critical role in uh, bringing Iran out of an economic quagmire. And that would actually really help uh, create or find new pathways uh, for Iran to explore with those countries. If, for instance, China wants to help further, or if China is already
Ali
on.
happens and comes out of the current status quo in which Iran is present as far as the P5+1 countries is concerned. Let's hope some kind of a deal is signed as far as this nuclear agreement, the JCPOA, is concerned, and that both the important parties, that is Iran and the United States of America, agree in principle to this JCPOA. That is maybe going to take this whole relationship and Iran, in fact, economically forward. This is what Iran really and badly needs as far as a stable future is concerned. Thank you very much, Syed Ali Zia Jaffery, Research Associate, CSSPR, to have joined us and to have talked to us about the future of the JCPOA. Things look optimistic. There is some kind of a positive ground as far as the future of the JCPOA is concerned. Only the coming days will reveal the truth. Let's come to our last two stories. The first is about the co-founder of Microsoft, a billionaire philanthropist and co-founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Mr. Bill Gates, who was in Pakistan yesterday for a day-long visit. He did a lot in this one day. He visited the NCOC, met with Mr. Asad Umar, with Dr. Faisal Sultan. He attended the morning session of the NCOC. Then he met with the Prime Minister Imran Khan Saab. He met with Sania Nishtar Saiba as well, and he oversaw what was happening as far as the Ehsaas program is concerned. He also really liked and appreciated the Ehsaas program. He appreciated Pakistan's endeavors as far as COVID-19, as far as polio eradication is concerned. And then he was also, as you can see in the images in your parallel window, given one of the biggest awards by Pakistan, the Hilal-e-Pakistan, by the President of Pakistan, our President of Pakistan. And of course, you can also see that there was a very cordial interaction between the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Imran Khan, and Mr. Bill Gates. A lot of good things have emanated, a lot of good sentiments from both sides, and Bill Gates returns to his country, a man with the prospects of further consolidating the relationship between the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Pakistan. Let's come to our last story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the Islamabad police. Now, we talk a lot about good services that we need to get because we are tax-paying citizens, and now the Islamabad police has started something in that very vein in order to provide citizen-centric policing, where, of course, red tapeism or VIP culture is eradicated. Islamabad police has launched services through WhatsApp. Now, in the first of its kind WhatsApp-based service developed by any police force of Pakistan, this service is, of course, free of cost. It is expected that the citizens will be able to avail the services of Islamabad police, and there are so many services that it provides through their fingertips using the WhatsApp. Now, all you need to do is WhatsApp the number, add it in your contacts. The number is 0334 287 4287. I repeat, 0334 287 4287, and all the set of instructions will be given to you once you WhatsApp, and then you can follow those instructions and get the requisite details or whatever you want from the Islamabad police. A very good measure in the right direction. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll come to the end of today's newsroom. Today is, of course, the last day of the week as well. We wish you a great weekend, but a safe weekend. Follow the SOPs, get yourselves vaccinated, and take care of yourselves and your loved ones. We'll inshallah see you on Monday. Allah Hafiz.